and we are live on a Saturday night. Big title fight happening in the UFC, but the biggest fight might be on the ice between Michael Bunting and the reffing crew of the game tonight. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Let's go around the horn and introduce everyone. We have the co-host with the mostest, Mr. D434, Dylan Fournier. Dilly, how's it going?
I am doing well. How are you guys?
Living the dream. And then stepping in for Pete, I'm inebriated at the Leafs game. They are now 5-1 Heat. Mr. Clark Monroe. Clarky, how's it going, buddy?
Good. Just tweeted out to jump on the live broadcast either on Twitter or YouTube and hit subscribe for Offside Hockey Talk. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get it amped up. All right. So let's jump right into this right here. The Leafs week that was the Colum-bust Blue Jackets. I say that because obviously game one kind of went according to plan, 3-0. Sonar looked good. No problems there. The second period in both games, last night and tonight, I touched on this in my video. The Leafs heavily outplayed, heavily outshot in both games. It didn't bite them last night, but it did tonight. Is this a little bit of a we're just coming out of the break, or is this a new flipping of the thing for the Leafs? Because the second period used to be their dominant bit of business, and really they got dominated both games in the second period. Luckily, Sonar held them in last night, not tonight.
Yeah, that was yesterday I didn't notice it as much, clearly just because of the goals, simply because of the goals. But tonight was terrible, and it's so funny you say they got outshot, because I remember somebody commented, I was doing a live stream tonight, my first one in a while, it felt like, and somebody said, how has Joseph Wall looked tonight? And I was like, well, he hasn't really been tested. He's only got 8 shots. And this was the start of the second period. So He's only had 8 shots against him. And it was Kyle, our good buddy Kyle, Panicking Kyle, Southside Panda.
Southside Panda.
He said, so like, has his rebound control been good and all that kind of stuff? I'm like, honestly, he hasn't really had a chance to test it out. They're playing really great in front of him. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh shoot, it's not 2-0 anymore. So it was a weird one tonight. It was almost as if in the intermission somebody said, hey, did you guys see that Jacob Chikrin got scratched in Arizona tonight? And everyone's like, oh, and then they just like completely took their mind off the game, because I thought the first period looked great. Like I really
definitely.
I right after the first period I was like, I'm super confident this is going to turn out exactly how it did yesterday. Another really clean victory and just get out of here with a win against a not so good team. And I don't know what happened to Columbus, if they had Michael's special stuff in the intermission or what happened, but they turned into a whole different team, and they just blasted the shots, like you said, James. Like I don't know what it was in the second period for shots exactly.
18.
Like in the specific, they had 18 shots in the second.
8, yeah, something around there.
Yeah, so like it was like I swear it was like 7 or 8 in the first, and then by the third period they were into almost up to 40 at that point. So totally different effort from them, and I don't know if maybe they caught the Leafs off guard or what happened there in that second period, just specifically tonight. Again, last night I didn't notice it as much, and maybe it was just that, maybe it was because Sonar was just playing good or something. Maybe that had something to do with it. But it wasn't messy. And then I think when you got a rookie goaltender in his first NHL game of the season, I know he's played before, but it's his first one of the season. He's just coming off the All-Star game himself, coming off of a traveling night. I know all of them were, but it's a lot. And when stuff starts piling up on a rookie goaltender, you kind of notice that a lot more than with a veteran goaltender. One thing happens and it kind of snowballs. And I think that's one benefit of having guys like Samsonov, who's played as many games as he's had, and Murray, who's played as many games as he's had. Guys like that, even if they do let in a bad goal, generally it doesn't snowball. But I felt like tonight kind of snowballed and just got away from the guys. And Keefe kind of called them out at the end of the game too in the press conference. I don't know if you saw the quotes, but basically said their compete level was garbage and said that their intensity was bad, and he can't go out there and play the game for them. Like it was not good. Like that's not, when a coach is saying that, that's bad. So that's kind of where I'm at with the last couple of games. It feels like it's been a year since they've played, and last night I felt really clean, and tonight I thought was going to go the same way, and just straight up didn't at the end of the day.
To me, it kind of felt like a completely different game. Like you watch the first and like their compete levels there, like they were battling in the corners, they
Yeah.
did the puck, and then the second they come out and it's just like a lollygag, and like you watch Columbus overtake the game, and it's like, why are you playing down to these guys? Like Elvis has not had a good year, and we
Nope.
made him look phenomenal somehow. Like his drastic saves at points were like, I was like, and he's having a bad year since when? But I noticed a little bit more of a switch put on in the third, but like I really did not understand where this comes from. Like Wool played great. I think the defense played kind of crap in front of him. I know on the one goal, I think it was the Marchenko. I think that's his
Yeah,
name.
Marchenko, yep.
Hull
Kirill the Thrill.
Hull. It looked like Hull had a chance to clear the puck, but it bounced and then it went to his stick and got in. But
5-minute muffin, baby. That's his especially right there, man. It's the Hall muffin up the boards, man. I'm not crapping on the guy. I'm just saying that's what I talk about when I say
there was a few of them.
Has to have that clear. It
Yeah.
has to be harder. If you're going off the glass, it's got to go out. Otherwise, I don't care if you got a torpedo, guys. Get that puck out of your zone. But soft clears, it burns them so much. And it's glaring because it seems to happen to one guy more than the others. And that's why we can call it the 5-minute muffin from Justin Hall, because it's legit. And
Yeah.
I hate picking on him because the guy does eat shots for breakfast, lunch.
Oh man, that one shot he took today, I was like,
Ooh.
God damn, brother. The one on Patrick Laine, I was like, you took every ounce of that shot, and I will applaud you every single day of the week. But your other play is shit, and I'm sorry to say it.
Here's the thing, though. Something we saw tonight too was the chippiness of the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit, and I'll say that with William Nylander taking that needless penalty behind the net. Didn't need to do it. I know you're upset or frustrated that you whiffed on the shot, but that was pretty dumb. But the thing that I want to talk about more than anything, and we talked about this before we came on, is Michael Bunting. And these things here really can follow you around. And I say that because, Clark, we've had a conversation off air before about how there is a certain referee that is entangled with Paul Maurice, and it definitely affects the game because there's more penalties called towards that team that said coach is coaching. Now, Michael Bunting, he went out there tonight, and there was a couple things that, could have been called. Same thing in the Boston game, could have been called. But he's embarrassing the referees, and it was the same referee from the Boston game to this game. So that's why I'm saying, Dylan, there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
Now tonight he's yelling at the same referee and freaking out and pointing at him and chirping him and just calling him down in front of all the other players, in front of his peers. And that referee is now not going to call anything when you're on the ice, whether it's for you or your teammates.
Yeah.
He's not going to, because you made him look like an idiot.
And that happened exactly right after that penalty that he got for
yes,
that
he went right into the corner and he took the freaking
went right into the corner. Guy grabbed his shoulder, pulled him completely sideways. He fell he yard sailed into the boards, and there's no call on that. And it was very visible. So I think that's a direct, exactly what you're saying, James.
Yeah.
It's a direct. This guy just showed us up. That was a call, but I'm not calling it. And it sucks that it has to happen that way. As a referee, I feel like, grudges and stuff shouldn't come into play at that level of hockey. I can see it happening at other levels, but when so much is on the line every night in the NHL, I feel like that's not a thing. But it is. It clearly is. And it has been. And we saw Tim Peel. He was not that Tim Peel was holding a grudge necessarily, but when he was calling that game, and the quote was, I already called 3 on the other guys. Let's see if we can maybe even it up a little bit or whatever it was. And so stuff like that happens. And when you get a ref, getting called out or whatever it happens to be, like you said, showed up or whatever, maybe that we got to even it up quote doesn't happen because he's like, we're not evening up on these guys for these guys. No, it's not happening. So not good.
I want to say something that like I don't know if this is just lately, but like if you look at other people like Michael Bunting, they seem to be at like an even level with their temper. Like their temper is always like mellow, but they're always like getting under your skin in the exact proper way. I don't know if it's lately, but I've noticing his freaking attitude and like just is like on the wire. Like he's screaming on the bench like almost every single game, and he's just like a wire, like ready to burst. And I don't know what's wrong with him or what's going on. Maybe there's issues at home, but like I think it could be an underlining thing, but I feel like it needs to be more Brad Marchand type of way to go about things rather than I'm on edge 24/7, and that's when the mistakes and things happen.
Here's my theory for this right here. He has no contract with the Maple Leafs for next year. So what are you trying to do right now? You want to be a part of the Maple Leafs. I don't know what the Maple Leafs have said to him. We don't know what the conversations are. But he's obviously, in my eyes, trying to do too much. Yeah. He's bringing way too much, forcing the issue too much. You know, I made the comparison to Darcy Tucker over on TikTok, and everybody said he's nowhere near Darcy Tucker. When it comes to chirping and being a firecracker a little bit, he has that element. But he doesn't have the drop the gloves. No, he does not. I'll give you that. But I think right now where he has no contract, he really is trying to do too
much. Just on that, James, too, I remember, I think it was maybe even on this show or I can't remember where, but we were talking once about gritty players. And I made the comparison of Pierre-Luc Dubois. So this would have been, I think, during the Canadian bubble, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe it wasn't on the show, but I was talking about it with somebody. And basically somebody said, I love Pierre-Luc Dubois. He plays heavy. He's gritty. And I'm like, I don't know if he is. Yeah. No, I have a point here. I'm getting back to it. Just hold on. I feel like Pierre-Luc Dubois is, at the time anyways, I feel like he's evolved. But at the time, he was trying to be gritty. Yeah. He was forcing it, which came off to me as this guy's a scorer his whole life. He's never been gritty his whole life. He just happens to be bigger than some other guys. And now he's forcing himself to play that way, and he's not good at it. And I kind of feel like maybe Bunting's getting a little bit into that. Not that he's not good at it, because we've seen it. But like you said, maybe he's trying to do too much. And it's like, dude, you were fine last year when you weren't doing too much. So why do you all of a sudden feel like you have to go Darcy Tucker against the Senators every single night? Like, we don't need that.
Like, I think he's trying to give 1,000 when he needs to just give 100. Like, it's way too much. Like, that one time he was on the bench with his face was bleeding. I'm like, calm down, dude. Like, your face is bleeding. We understand. Like, get the penalty called, and that's all you did. That's all you need to do for your job. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I think maybe this trade deadline needs to be a focus on somebody of size and somebody that can take on that role in a little bit bigger of a way to take some of that pressure off of him, because he is good at being in front of the net and being that type of pest. He's good in the corners, but when it comes to, you know, defending your team and let's say taking the heat, he doesn't always handle it well.
Well, and I think Steve Dangle even said it on the last podcast, is that one of his biggest wants, I guess, for the trade deadline would be for somebody to be acquired that can push him down in the lineup, because his words were something like he's taking on too much responsibility right now. Yeah. He needs to be knocked down a peg because he's more effective when he's not trying to be that player or not thinking that he has to be that player. So that's actually a really good point, and that kind of leads to that whole conversation we've had before, and we probably might have tonight, but of who do they get in a trade. And if you can maximize Michael Bunting, we all talk about Yarncroke going down into the third line. If you can maximize Bunting by maybe putting him down onto a third line role instead, maybe that's where the money is. Like if Patrick Kane is in the conversation, and we get a Patrick Kane on the Leafs, and he's not in consideration to play with Matthews because Bunting is there, that's a problem. I feel like we
I
gotta
think
move
that'd be
Bunting.
an obvious move, though. I think you'd move Bunting down for sure. And also, I think, too, Clark and Dylan, you look at Michael Bunting right now, his best buddy, Austin Matthews, is not in this lineup. So maybe, at least these past few games, he's really thinking he needs to elevate his game, a la William Nylander, who has taken on huge strides, to look better, perform better. Same with JT, same with Marner. And maybe he's just trying to cast himself in that ilk. Like what you guys said, he doesn't need to do that. Just be the guy. Do what got you to the dance is what the old saying is. He's trying to do one step too many, and he's tripping over his own feet now, and it's not looking good. But the Leafs week that was is a 1-1 week, 2 games, coming back off the All-Star break, 9 days off. We'll take the 2 points. It sucks because now Tampa is right on our heels.
Yeah.
Right there. They win 1 game, it's tied.
And Boston lost today, and we decided today was the day to lose to Columbus. Like, what are we doing here, Leafers?
Listen, I will say this too about the Boston Bruins. Again, I'll keep harping on this, guys. From March 9th till April the 2nd, their schedule is the worst in the NHL. They literally play almost every other night. Some weeks they play, I think it's like 4 and 5, or like crazy, like 5 and 7. It's just nuts, the schedule they have. Like, they're going to go through the meat grinder. And if they don't come out with any injuries, it'll be amazing to see. And that's when you'll see Linus Allmark really get tested too. So I'm really wondering what it looks like when the temperature ratchets it up in Boston. But the Leafs week that will be, guys. Again, not any big name teams. It's Chicago, Montreal, Chicago. Hello, hello. Deep dish pizzas all around. What are we thinking, Clark Monroe, for this week for the Maple Leafs here? Games they should win, but the ones they should win are the ones they usually flubber, much like tonight.
Well, I'll take one of those times, when you play against a team and then you make a trade with that team and the guy just walks across the hall. I think we got a couple opportunities for that coming up in the next 3 games.
That's what I was saying.
That's what I'm looking forward to most. No. No, I think Chicago's a team that it's just like Columbus. I mean, they showed the odds for the draft lottery on the screen a couple of times tonight. They're right there with Columbus. I mean, these are 2 games, and they're not back-to-back with travel either, where with a rookie goaltender starting on a back-to-back night. Not that's an excuse, but still, they should win both those games. Now, is Chicago on Sunday, or when is Chicago?
Yeah, Sunday at 6
Here's a
p.m.
back-to-back. So you have Chicago and Montreal on the weekend.
So
Montreal first, then Chicago.
Okay, it is a back-to-back with travel. Never mind. But I still think, with as much rest as they have, I would think that weekend is the target return time for Austin Matthews to come back. I would think, because today's the 11th, and they've already said before this day that it was about a week away still, probably. So that's probably the target. Would be those 2 games. Montreal maybe on the Saturday night would be the target.
Come in against Patty Kane, and Kaner's like, I got my new American name.
Yeah, there he is. I'll hop over with you guys. Sure. So yeah, I think that's going to be a huge boost. Obviously, it's going to be a big week if Chychrun's doing the whole thing this weekend. It's going to be a big week of speculation and whether he gets traded by Monday, which is kind of what I'm kind of getting the vibes of. We'll get to that in a sec. I don't want to make this about that, but just saying that if that's gonna happen, that might cause a domino effect. So we might have a lot to talk about on the Wednesday show. That's for sure.
Seriously,
there might be a lot going on, but yeah, I think Chicago's the Wednesday game. If you lose this, that would be, I think, if you lose that game against Chicago specifically, the type of game where we see a 10:30 p.m. Eastern time trade made type night, like the Jack Campbell night a couple years ago, or the those kinds of nights, the Labushkin with Nick Ritchie trade, kind of a bit of a wake up call, especially with Keefe's comments in the press after this one, calling the team out for a lack of effort. Essentially, that's a big statement. So yeah, this could be a really interesting week and not have anything to do with the games that are coming up necessarily. I think it's an important week. It seems kind of like a turning point in the schedule, just timing wise with everything. So there's a lot to keep an eye on that aren't Leafs or Chicago at Leafs, Montreal at Leafs, or Leafs at Chicago.
All right. Well, what do you put the week at? Do you put them at 3-0? Do you put them at 2-0-1?
I'll put them at 2-0-1. I think one of these games is going to end. I'll say the Saturday game will end up in overtime for some reason, one way or the other. But I feel like the way that Chicago's playing, I think they should have. Especially, we're going to see Peter Mrazek, guys. If we don't win those games,
Oh,
come on.
Peter Mrazek, boys. Peter Mrazek is what we're going to call him because he's going to be pretty petty against the Leafs and shut the door.
Watch it happen.
Oh, man.
Dilly, what do you think, my friend? What are the Leafs doing this week?
I was going to be like conservative and just like say 1-1-1, but I'll go 2-1. I feel like Mrazek might have that little bite under him to get his revenge. And what better for Patty? What better for Patty Kane to be like, you guys really want me, and like just put in a little dagger of just scoring a couple under us.
That could happen.
All right. Leafs win. Chicago. Leafs win against Montreal because they want that one back, the one they lost. And the Leafs win on Sunday, giving Joe Wool a little retribution for what they just gave him tonight. This week, I will tell you this team will be motivated. Why? Because Sheldon Keefe is going to light a fire under these guys. And if you're not playing right, guess what they're going to say to you? There's a big old day coming, and you may be the guy going out the door. So show me what you got. Show me what you're worth, especially Kerfoot, especially Justin Hall. You guys are UFAs at the end of the year. So you can go out the door if you don't want to play up to snuff. You want a 5-minute muffin, me? Take your 5-minute muffins down the hall. Take it down the hall to Chicago. See you later. Kerfoot, he was flying tonight, by the way. That was a guy that looked inspired. If I had to say any Leaf was inspired, he looked inspired tonight.
He didn't. I was going to say something about him, but he didn't when he got knocked down. That's all I had to say.
Listen, you know what, though? It's not. He was winning puck battles. You'll get knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down.
He was pretty decent on the faceoffs, I think.
Well, that's something they need,
One other thing, too, that I'll just point out that I was reading about, and somebody pointed it out to me during the live stream tonight on my TikTok channel, that Engvall got benched in the second period, and I don't know if he played much in the third.
He got back onto his regular shift.
Oh, he did in the third. Okay. So that was directly due to he had a muffin as well. He gave away a puck in the own end, which led to a goal, and Keefe was a little upset about it, so he benched him. So that's not that. I don't think that alone is a reason to watch out for Engvall out the door type conversations, but
it's just a firelighter, right?
I feel like you can bench a forward way more than a defenseman that blocks shots.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I wanted to mention
Connor Timmins got to get in, boys.
Nathan Phillips' square practice is going to be a doozy.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of fun and pomp and circumstance going first to show it all off. But I think Sheldon Keefe is going to be very animated. It's not going to be a fun one.
No,
I think he's really going to want. Listen, he, as well as Kyle Dubas, by the way, holding his phone the entire game to make himself look like he's into something.
He looked like he was taking pictures.
Yeah, honestly, looked like he was filming a TikTok. He was like holding his phone here. He wasn't looking at the screen.
He was tapping it for a bit too. Yeah. Maybe him and the wife he got into an argument and he was swiping on Tinder.
No, listen. No. He was in Chris Weigel's live under some user 304.
Tapping the hearts.
Tapping the hearts. Get the positive
Leaf
fans going.
Kyle Dubas' user numbers. That's it. He came into Chris's live and said 1967. That was Dubas.
Probably so. Just trolling everyone so he knows. But I'm looking for the Leafs to do 3-0-0 this week, guys. The Leafs need these points. They want to keep up on Tampa. Listen, Sheldon Keefe is not going to let these guys off the hook. He's under the pressure just as much as everybody else in this organization. So he's coming out and saying these things because he expects more, And these guys expect more of themselves. We talked, Clark, you said last time you were on that closed door meeting. How much you want to bet your ass there's probably another one tomorrow before those guys head out to Nathan Phillips Square and figure this out and get things going and get things rolling.
So.
And also, I got to think, though, like I said about guys going out the door, you got to wonder how guys feel towards trade deadline. When we had Jamie McCowan on, we talked to him about going towards trade deadline. There's so many guys that start to bobble pucks or get a little nervous. Maybe there's a little bit of that going on in the room, especially when you hear Chychrun. You're wondering if you're the $3.5 million centerman going out the door. You never know, right? Those things all play into it. But Clark's going 2-0-1. Dilly's straight up saying they're losing the game to Montreal.
Yeah. I didn't say who.
No.
Actually, yes, I did. I said Mrazek.
Okay, well, listen, we're losing to Mrazek. We're getting Mrazek. I'm going 3-0. We have eternal optimist. We're winning them all. We're getting it done. By the way, we're also adding Chychrun and Meyer, so let's go on a run. Let's have some fun.
All
right. All right, so let's get to the GBU, brought to you by Smitty Sports Cards. They are the generous donors of all of the rookie cards we give away on the prediction seasons and sometimes during the live streams. But you probably got your hands on a few of those. That's not one of them, but that is beautiful nonetheless. So the good, let's just say what the good is, guys. The good is that Maple Leafs hockey is back.
Yep.
It's 9 days too long. The fan base by the end of it was basically chewing each other's fingers off to the tips. It was gross. It's good to have the games back, something to chew on, something to talk about. That's the good for me. Dylan, what's the good for you?
Sammy held us in that game. I'll give him the credit. He's taken the number one role very, very seriously, and he deserves it.
All right, there's the good. There's the good. Clarky, what's your good in the good, the bad, the ugly?
This guy's on a heater right now. Morgan Riley is back.
He is.
Shout out to all the Morgan Riley haters. This guy is scoring goals like a fiend, and couldn't come at a better time. He's gonna get 20 by the end of the year. Let's book it now.
Let's go.
Oh, fire!
Book it.
Yeah. He's on pace.
Listen, let's go, Morgan Riley. We're all fired up for you, buddy. The bad for the Maple Leafs, obviously, again, is the consistency with effort. You just played these guys last night. Yeah. You know what they bring. Elvis Merzlikins tonight has not been a great goaltender this season for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're a bottom feeder team. I talked about it in the Leafs After 10 last night. They were very easily able to put their foot on the gas pedal in third last night and take the game away. Tonight, they took their foot off the gas in the second. The shots went up. Everything went up. The effort level went out the door. They went down in the game, and we've seen the old Leafs show up. It was sunken shoulders, shaking of the heads, looking displaced, really disjointed after they started to fall behind and really lose the momentum of that game. So that, to me, is the bad. Anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
Then the downright ugly. Downright ugly is all the injuries. Matthews and Murray, Muzzin, not knowing where things lie for the Maple Leafs is where I think is ugly, because as fans, as much as I think the organization would love clarity, I think they already have it. But all of us are wondering what's what. Like with Matt Murray, I'm wondering, is he going to be out like Freddie Anderson was? Because Freddie Anderson was out, and he was only supposed to be out for a couple of weeks. Then it turned into, well, no, he's going on the LTIR because we're making moves. David Alter came on the show that day and said, no, Freddie can fully play. But they went to him and said, hey, how about you heal up a little bit longer? We'll bring you back for the playoffs. They used this space in turn to get Fliggy to go and make a couple of other moves as well. Riley Nash was another move that they made. They brought him in. So I'm wondering if there's some of that going on here with, oh, your ankle's not so great. Because literally, they put him on IR, and he was on the ice. He was on the ice practicing when he went on IR. So it's, and Kyle Dubas strictly said it. He said, we did it to bring more bodies in.
Yeah. One thing that I read too, though, James, just to kind of, I think there's some rules and stuff that go along with that. He hadn't been dressed for a game in 7 days or something. And I think if that's the case, you're no longer able to just be like classified as out. You have to get put on IR. I think that's or sent down to the minors. I think that's the rule. So I think that was more of a paper thing, and I think you can retroactively put him on IR if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So he's like eligible to come back like tomorrow now at this point or something like that. So I don't know if that one is necessarily like an LTIR long term, or if that was more just a short term thing, just to paper transaction. Like you said, they brought a couple guys up to practice and play, and I think that was mostly it.
Dubas did say he's out for 2 weeks though. He's at least 2 weeks away.
You're right. Yeah, he did say that. So the IR might be a little bit longer, but yeah.
I will say, like, I would love nothing but his cap space there at trade deadline. But I feel like the best thing, if he's healthy, would be to bring him in and give him more confidence before the playoffs.
Yeah, I think he'd be a lot more confident behind Timo Meier than he would be, Calle Yarncrook on the second line. Just saying, or Jakob Chychrun on the back line, or Jacob Chychrun. Sorry.
You can still use Muzzin's money, Mister. He's coming back in the playoffs.
He is.
Have you guys heard the Gustav Nyquist report?
No.
Okay, so there's Chris Johnson put it out on the Chris Johnson show. Shout out to those guys. Basically, that Gustav Nyquist his injury status is such that he's gonna be hurt until the playoffs, essentially. But maybe not out for the whole rest of the year. And he's got a $5.5 million contract. So the idea is that if you acquire him in a trade, you could immediately put him on LTIR, which would – now this was the Leafs. This is the example that he gave for the Leafs, is that if you put him on LTIR, it allows you to then put Austin Matthews on LTIR and accumulate the full amount. Now, hold on, not the full amount of Austin Matthews because he's coming back, but the full amount of Gustav Nyquist's 5.5, because the two of them would put them at the exact amount, apparently, that would maximize it. And then you bring Austin Matthews back because he's going to be back. And then so basically you'd be at a free $5.5 million to spend on top of him maybe coming back for the playoffs as well. And Gustav Nyquist is no slouch.
Nope. He's a Leaf killer too.
Well, fair enough. I don't know how healthy he is or how good he is at this point, given the fact that he's been hurt so much the last, I'm going to say, couple of seasons now. But that's another option. You know how the loopholes all work out these days, where if you acquire him from Colum-bust, and it probably wouldn't be coming back with anybody else. It would probably only be Nyquist, and then you maximize the LTIR, and then all of a sudden, if Muzzin goes on LTIR, you're looking at $10.5 million of salary cap space, and who's got a $10.5 million? Patrick Kane is who I was going to say. Dylan.
Patrick Kane, you're right.
Players.
Yeah,
I guess 50% retained.
Hang on, and then Clark. Then you put Murray on the LTIR. Let's just have, $15.5 million.
Let's have Murray, Kane, and Chychrun.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Meyer, that's what I meant to say.
No, but, I mean that's a little bit of a. A lot of things have to happen and go right for that to actually make sense and work. But just something Chris Johnson threw out there, and I thought if Chris Johnson's throwing it out there, it's not nothing.
No, he usually bases his stuff off of things that he's either heard. What did Doug McLean used to say? I'm not telling you if it's true. I'm just telling you what I heard.
Right. Sure. So there you go.
That could be it right there. But that would be very
interesting. Smoke and fire.
Imagine though the Leafs doing what Tampa did a couple of years ago, where Tampa, and they made shirts about it when they won the cup. I mean, Kucherov was wearing the shirt, 18.5 over or whatever it was.
Yep.
So
imagine that.
Imagine the Leafs being able to do that, bringing in a few top-notch players, not to mention the players that are on LTIR coming back and bolstering your lineup further there with a Murray, a Muzzin, and a Nyquist. Let's go. Let's just go. Woo!
Yeah,
let's have some fun. Well, why not, man? It's crazy.
Are we going to just touch on the Chychrun stuff a little bit further too? Or
we are, yeah. We're going to wrap the good, the bad, the ugly. So that's the good, bad, the ugly.
Okay, right.
Brought to you by Smitty Sports Cards. Be sure to check them out over on Twitter. Check out their eBay store as well. Lots of good deals going on. And by the way, the entire podcast, see up in the corner there, but we are brought to you by Boxing Rock Brewing Co. This is not the Puck Off Lager Ale, but it is the Crafty Jack. And it's absolutely delicious.
English brown. Get me a case of that right now.
It's very, very good. I will work on that, actually. I've been talking to them a lot about trying to find ways to send stuff. Find ways. I'm going to be at Niagara Falls in April, and you best believe that I'm going to smuggle some of my luggage. See what we can get going there. But anyways, we'll move on now to Around the Glass here for the NHL. We got Monahan's Sports Bar out in Oakville going to be sponsoring this one. They want to do a live show with Offside during the playoffs. Hopefully Dilly and Pete can get there. They're willing to host them, feed them, and drink them down in Oakville while the playoffs go behind, and they get to host a live show there before the game or after. However they can stand, I guess.
After the game, we might not be able to stand.
You never know. Maybe all the 6 and the 6 moseys their way down there for one, and away they go. That could be a big old thing. But off the glass right here, the only thing we're really going to talk about is trades, because we are in that kind of realm right now. The biggest one tonight, Jacob Chychrun held out of the lineup, not playing against St. Louis, want to keep their asset healthy. Jeff Merrick went on 32 Thoughts on the intermission, said that it's not LA, not Edmonton. And interesting choice of words about Toronto, though. Toronto said it's not them. So not that they're not in it, but Toronto said that it's not them. So that's a play on words, because you're not going to say, yes, it's us, and then make everybody else be like, well, we're going to offer a little bit more. And I think the same thing can be said about LA and Edmonton as well. You know, you're never going to say you're in it, because why? Why would you show your cards to everyone when you want to basically have the best hand at the table? You're not going to show them early. You're going to show them later. So I think right now it's a lot of jockeying for position. But ultimately, I'll start with you, Clarky. Where do you think Chychrun ends up here? There's a lot of links to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We love it as fans, but where do you think he ultimately ends up?
So Frank Saravalli tweeted just a minute ago, well, it was like half an hour ago, that there's a lot of smoke around the Kings, the Knights, not the Knights, the Kings. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't know if you remember, if we've had this conversation or not. I had this big, long thing in the summer before Eichel got traded to Vegas. I had this strong feeling that Eichel was going to go to LA, just because they have so many assets that are tradable, and they had some cap space at the time. Then they went out and got Kevin Fiala, ruined their cap space, so that changed it a little bit. But with Chychrun, $4.6 million, that I feel like they'll find a way to fit that in, and they still have all those tradable assets. And I feel like on defense specifically, outside of Drew Doughty, name me 2 or 3 LA King defensemen. Can you guys do it? Because
Sean Jersey, Matt Roy.
Okay.
Sean Jersey, Matt Roy, Sean Walker.
There you go,
Mikey Anderson's another one,
Mikey
but like
Mikey Anderson,
not household names. Like they're not.
How dare you besmirch Mikey Anderson like that?
Sorry.
They're working on Jersey.
Yeah. They're not Jake Muzzin, Drew Doughty, and all the guys they had back in the day with the LA Kings. They're a different group now. It's a younger group. It's not as established. As good as they may or may not be, I just feel like a defenseman of Jacob Chychrun's status who can play with Drew Doughty on that top pair and then maybe move everybody else down a little bit. It just seems like a really, really, really good fit. And as much as I would love to see the Toronto thing just for the good times and giggles, I feel like LA is a really good fit, and they could offer Brandt Clark, they could offer Quinton Byfield, they could offer Turcotte, they could offer Kaliev, they could offer all these guys, Madden, they have Bjornfoot, they have so many freaking prospects under the age of 22. They have draft picks, I think, they're so stocked up for something like this, and I don't know if there's another team necessarily, including the Leafs, including Edmonton, who can match what LA could potentially throw at the Coyotes in this deal. So I just feel like that's probably going to be where he ends up. As excited as I was when this whole thing happened during the game, as Dylan called me out for having the crazy eyes, that excitement was real, but I just felt like I feel like LA has been raring up for some big trade for a while now, and this seems like a really good fit for them. So I'm going to say that it's going to be LA, and there's going to be probably like 3 prospects, a really high pick, and maybe a roster guy to balance out some money in that deal, just because they can. And if they give up 3 prospects, they still have like 8 or 9 really good prospects too. So like they're just loaded up over there, and I don't think people are giving them enough credit for that.
Well, one guy that he was supposed to be on the show this week, but unfortunately we had a little bit of scheduling conflicts, is Dennis Bernstein. He covers the LA Kings for the fourth period. He's been on the show a bunch of times and always talks up the amount of prospects they have and how LA needs to start using some of that capital for something other than just watching them develop the Turcottes, the Byfields. I mean, so many different players that are in that organization that, may not get a shot up higher because of guys they brought in, like the Denos, like the Kevin Fialas. So, yeah, it would make sense for them to make a move, make a push. Just sucks as Leaf fans because we want to see something happen in our neck of the woods. There has been a little bit of smoke towards the name that I've been beating the drum for, Noel Chari. I've now heard more than a few people mention his name linked towards the Toronto Maple Leafs as someone they might want to bring in. He's also been linked to the Boston Bruins because he has played there. He went on a run with them against the St. Louis Blues. So that might be something that works out for Boston. Tyler Bertuzzi, another name floated out there, guys. That
I would accept as a replacement on the first line for Michael Bunting. Push him down with him.
First line. I don't think Bertuzzi's a first line guy.
I think he has the grit to play on the first line.
Yeah, I think he would be your fit for your second line though to protect JT.
But I don't think Bunting would mind going down for him.
You never know, man. He likes getting his cookies with Austin Matthews, that's for sure.
In a contract year, especially.
Yes. Another guy that's I know, Clark, that we talked about this a few days ago now is Max Domi. A lot of people were down on him, and myself included, was not very excited. But then I went and looked at the point totals, putting up some pretty good points. He's not bad on the face-off dot, and this is all on a team
like surprisingly good on the face-off dot this year.
Yeah, and on a team that is not doing very well at all for the Chicago Blackhawks. So I look at that and say, well, can they maybe polish that diamond up a little bit and allow him to run and be flourishing in their bottom 6, or even move him up on the second line and allow him to play with Marner and JT. He's got speed. He can put points in. And
I knew Marner was coming in that conversation. That's why I laughed, because they played here in London.
Well, you never know. Why not? Why not get it done?
One thing I will say about Max Domi is going into the year, I was not overly excited about the idea of him. And I put out a tweet the other day. Here's my Twitter handle. I think there's an underscore at the end, but you get the idea. Basically just that I think the biggest reason that like 80% of Leaf fans want Max Domi is because they think he's Max Domi from when he was a Coyote at the beginning of his career, or when he was his first year with the Canadiens, when he was under the Leaf skin every night. Like, that was a special Max Domi. Like, I would agree that Max Domi would be perfect. That's a Michael Bunting clone right there. Maybe even a little bit better at it. And he's got the name, right? Obviously.
And he'll drop the mitts.
Right. At the time he was. But if you go look at his numbers on, I think like Hockey Reference is a really good website for it, because they show hits and stuff on that website, and some websites don't show hits. Since his first season in Montreal, his hits each year have been like cut in half, like year over year almost. Like, it's gotten lower and lower as his career has gone on. His block shots has gotten lower and lower as his career has gone on. His penalty minutes has gone down. Like, he's not the same guy. I don't know what happened, if something changed, if he had an injury, if somebody talked to him and said, listen, buddy, you got to change your game or you're not going to be in it very long. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But before this season, and James, when you said his point totals look great, his face-off totals look great, before the season, he wasn't that guy. He wasn't necessarily putting up, 40 points in this many games right now. He wasn't doing that. And then he comes in this year. I think he was motivated, obviously. Nobody wanted to sign him to a long-term deal. I think he was a free agent, right? So he signs a one-year
Yep.
deal in Chicago on a bad team, and everyone knew they were going to be bad, and he signed there anyways. And I think this was a big opportunity for him, and he's shown that, hey, I'm still this offensively skilled guy, and he's worked on his faceoffs. That's obvious. He's a 55% faceoff guy. He's never been more than a 44% guy. So
Yep.
this is a big change for him. And maybe he's not the physical guy who gets under everybody's skin, but something that got pointed out to me was that we all forget that Max Domi is a type 1 diabetic.
Yep.
And it takes a certain type of person to have type 1 diabetes and play in the NHL for as long as he has. And he's not that old, but as long as he has, he's been in the league for 7 or 8 or 9 years now already. He's been around the block a little bit. He's been on 4 teams now. So this is the kind of guy who maybe I'm changing my mindset on him a little bit, and maybe he wouldn't be the worst fit. But it also sounds like he's kind of buying in long-term to Chicago. So I don't know if he has control over it. I don't think he does, but
No,
maybe
he
he doesn't necessarily want to get traded. Maybe he wants to stay in Chicago. I don't know. But I have changed my tune on him a little bit. But one guy I just want to toss out there too is Tyler Johnson. And I said it in a video a while back on TikTok. Tyler Johnson is a guy who's already got a half retained contract. So if you half retained it again, he's got another year on it. And it would be $1.25 million for 2 years for Tyler Johnson, who's one of the leading point scorers in Tampa Bay Lightning history in the playoffs specifically.
He might know how to beat them too.
He might know how to maybe. Maybe.
The inside track.
And one thing I kind of had put out there, I was talking about it tonight with some people on my live stream, was on top of that whole second line need that I still think exists, or the first line need, or whatever it is, top 6, let's say. I really feel like a bottom 6 centerman wouldn't hurt my feelings right now.
No.
I think David Kampf is way more effective. Not that he's bad as a third line center, but I think he's way more effective as a fourth. Mm-hmm. And if we had a bit more, because our third line right now, all season right now, has been Kampf and Engvall and somebody else, which is great. They're defensive, they're two-way, they're smart. Nothing really happens against them. That's great. But then our fourth line is also that way. And that's been a big identity thing for the Leafs this season. But I feel like we've maybe lost a little bit of that offensive push from the bottom 6. Just a little bit. But it's noticeable enough that we've talked about it a few times. And I feel like if they can maybe try to address that by pushing Kampf down to the fourth and making the third line a bit back to what it was last year, maybe, where it's a little bit more offensive, that might not hurt my feelings. But as long as it doesn't wreck the whole structure of the team, of course. But that's something I was thinking about today.
A guy who looked good tonight was Alex Steeves.
He did.
A couple chances, battling for the puck. He's not the most diminutive guy, so he can still stand up for himself, push back a little bit as well. I wouldn't even mind if you addressed the bottom 6 and brought in a centerman, putting Pontus Holmberg on the wing and using that body there. He still has the smarts. He can swap in off face-off dots or take it on a strong side, whatever you need to do. There's all those different little things that you can do moving a guy in and out if you bring in that stuff. I look at it like this and say, they got to address the bottom 6. They'll probably bring in a defender. I know everybody's clamoring for that to happen. I think the Leafs just really feel that Jake Muzzin might be a thing, guys. I really do. If they don't bring in someone physical, that must mean that they know something we don't. And also Connor Timmins is a guy that needs to play, putting up points on the back end, by the way. Crazy.
That's what I was gonna say. He's somebody that can jump in, and if Dubas doesn't make the move, he totally believes in this decor back there. I don't have a problem with him right now. Besides today's game, that was the only real big.
Well, you got Victor Mete coming back. You got Jordy Ben sitting in the wings. Connor Timmins sitting in the wings.
That's your guy. If you need size and grit, is Ben. Ben can come in and do that.
But that's what I've been saying to everybody. Everybody's like, you need to go get a depth defenseman. Why?
We have
if you're going to acquire
9 of them.
it has to be a top 4 defenseman.
But that goes
100%.
back to our conversation from a few weeks ago, James, where I said everyone was talking about the big forward at the time, and I said I think if we're going to add a big name, I think that big name's got to be on defense and add some B-level guys at forward, if anything.
I think right now the
you got to get an
Austin
impact
Matthews
guy.
thing is really exposing your top 6 for needing more. We just talked about Bunting trying to do too much. Kirkwood having to elevate and play out of his depths.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing that you need an extra top 6 guy right now, because if one of them goes down, it's like someone pulled the pin out of it.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely need it, and like you just lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets by a freaking goal. Like, you need somebody else that can provide a goal. As weird as it says or sounds, like Matthews being out of the lineup definitely opens up a lot, our eyes to a lot.
It does. And here's the thing, Austin Matthews is going to come back and he'll be rested, he'll be healed, he'll be ready to go. We all know that since the beginning of the season, the Leafs have been trying to find him time off because he's been banged up. So maybe he comes back from this layoff and is A1 Austin Matthews, and he starts sniping goals like no tomorrow, and we're all like, well, no, we need a defenseman, guys, because top 6 is beautiful. It's always going to flip-flop, right? But I think if you add a little bit more up there, it'll make it better. I mean, so many people saying in the chat that we're blind that the Leafs need a defenseman. I'm not saying they don't need a top 4 guy.
But people are saying that we need a depth defenseman, and that's not what we need. That's far from what we need.
If you're getting a D guy, it has to be a bona fide
top 4.
Top 3.
That's what I was thinking. I want top 3 because you either want somebody that can play with Morgan or you want somebody that can play on that side.
I want Morgan Riley with TJ Brody. That's my pair. I like that pair.
Okay, all I'm saying is caliber-wise, you need somebody.
No, I know. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just
saying
that
can either run their own line or somebody that can play alongside Riley at that caliber.
I would love to see a Gio Chikrin pair. Because Gio would be your stay-at-home safe guy.
Yes.
Stay-at-home safe guy, and Chikrin would be able to do his Morgan Riley-esque offensive stuff. By the way, the reason why I'm now really in this Chikrin realm here, when they said on the broadcast tonight that Morgan Riley's power play goal was the first Leafs defenseman power play goal this season, that made me go, whoa, they need a little bit of help. They need a little bit of something.
And he has how many goals? I think he has like 10 or more. No, not Riley. I mean Chikrin.
Oh, Chikrin, yeah. He's got a lot of power play points. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And he also can help feed. But again, Morgan Riley was out. Morgan Riley was not here. Morgan Riley was injured. We don't know how injured he was before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He does look like he's taking strides to getting back to himself. Guys, how long did it take Rasmus Sandin to be Sandman again, missing camp? It took him a couple of months.
Yeah, missing comp.
Maybe both.
All right, I think that's the perfect spot to wrap her up right there. Clarky, where can everybody find you, just in case they don't know?
Right here, generally, is a good place to go. At Producer Clark, pretty much everywhere. Hit me up on TikTok and Twitter. And shout out to the SJHL as well. I'm doing a lot of work with the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. If you guys wouldn't mind, if anyone's listening and wants to head over, subscribe to that YouTube channel as well, and all the other social media channels that we got. We're pumping out a lot of awesome stuff for them as well. So that's been a big thing for me this year. But yeah, that's a couple of places you can go.
We love it, man. I always pump that stuff up. It doesn't matter. Dilly can do all the pumping he wants over there, but we're going to talk about people with sports cards over on YouTube. Make sure you go check that out.
Come to my TikTok tomorrow at 2 p.m. I am doing mystery packs.
Mystery packs during the Super Bowl.
No, before the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will be probably back on Tuesday as Pete the Heat has a work engagement on Wednesday. The Leafs also play a hockey game then. Hopefully, we can get Mr. Producer Clark back on a Tuesday night. We shall see. I know that Mr. Dylan Fournier will not be there because he will be working. But it will be what it will be, ladies and gentlemen. Take this loss for what it is. They came back from a break. They looked a little bad tonight. It was a fluky high stick goal. Don't dwell on it. Lots of runway left. The Leafs are still one of the top 5 teams in the NHL. And this is Offside Hockey Talk, where the Maple Leafs and hockey come to talk.